Welcome back to Just Talking with Joe Burdick. Today's episode is probably going to ruffle some feathers, and honestly, that's kind of the point. My guest today has been called a lot of things: outspoken, controversial, even extreme, depending on who you ask. But she's a mom. She's a mom of two, fearless parental rights advocate, and unapologetic voice for families fighting to take back America's classrooms. As chair of Moms for Liberty, Cuyahoga County, she's on the front lines challenging government overreach, exposing political agendas in education, and empowering parents to be the ultimate decision makers for their children. From State House testimony to grassroots campaign, Hilary has become a leading voice in the national conversation on education, freedom, and family. She's organized high impact events, built thriving homeschool networks, and spoken out boldly on behalf of parents who refuse to stay silent. Her advocacy has earned her invitations to participate in calls with the White House, Faith Office, and private briefings with the U.S. Department of Education, where she continues to represent the voices of parents and families. Moms for Liberty is also recognized as a member of the White House Task Force on AI Education, ensuring that parental oversight and student well being remain the center of America's educational innovation. Hilary's work has been featured in the New York Times, the Christian Post, Town Hall, and other national outlets where she's known for speaking truth without apology and refusing to back down. Whether she's rallying crowds, challenging corrupt systems, or defending the rights of children, Hilary stands as a relentless advocate for faith, family, and freedom. She and I run in the same circles. We've never actually met, and I keep hearing the same thing over and over. You've got to get her on. So here we are. Hilary, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you so much. That's so funny that part of me wonders like, well, why did they say that you have to get me on? Because I just say like the great just because of things I say or what? That's really funny. I'm excited though. Thank you for asking me.
Well, I think part of the reason is because, we're like-minded. The circles that we both run in, they're very similar. We have, we both believe in, faith, family, and freedom. And why wouldn't I want to have you on? You know, um, I didn't know who you were up until, I don't know, it must have been 6 months ago, whatever it was. But then, there was a changeover at a radio station, and
Right.
my good buddy Jake Underwood got a new show, and my buddy Bob France, he got replaced. Well, then all of a sudden, there was this name everywhere: Hilary Jackson, and I was like, "Who the hell is Hilary Jackson?" And when I started looking into your posts and following your social media, I'm like, heck yeah, I want to know who Hilary Jackson is. So, who is Hilary Jackson?
Well, I mean, I'm just a mom. Honestly, that's really all it comes down to. Everything I do is fueled by the love I have for my children and for the love that I see obviously other parents have for their kids. And, the things that I kind of dip my toe in have everything to do with the fact that these parents want to do right by their kids and they feel like their hands are tied and they don't know what to do, or they feel that that their children would get some sort of repercussion if the parents themselves were to step out. So and those things happen. So I mean, I guess the reason or how I got involved and why everybody seems to know who I am now is it started a couple of years ago. I live in Brecksville, and my children were going to the public school here in Brecksville, and I had gotten a Facebook message from another mom. Now, both of my boys are neurodivergent. My oldest son has Tourette's, and they're both medicated for those things. Um, and so when you have neurodivergent kids, a lot of the parents that also, have kids maybe on the spectrum. We kind of form a tribe, you know. So we stick together, we become friends, we develop relationships. But I got a message from one of those moms, and she had asked me if the school called me about, either of my kids' medications being stolen. And I said no, because we were fortunate enough that their meds can be taken at home before school. It's not like an as needed uh, thing. And she had explained to me that she got a phone call from the school that her child's medication was stolen, was unaccounted for, and that's really all that she knew. And I was waiting for the school to send something out to all of the families, because supposedly that day the police were there at the school. The one health aide was taken out of the building. It seemed to be like this kind of like dramatic thing, right? From what I'm being told by, at this point, multiple parents. So I'm waiting for the school to to send something out, and it was about 2 weeks, and we never received anything. Um Well, within those 2 weeks, I learned that the health aide at the elementary school, that's pre-K through 5th grade, was stealing the Adderall or the methylphenidate from the neurodivergent children, and she was giving them her Lexapro, which is an SSRI. It's an antidepressant that's very, very strong. It's not even supposed to be given to, people under the age of 12, and that's an elementary building, so there's nobody there, or the kids, aren't obviously over the age of 12, and that's what she was giving them instead. So she was drugging the kids, and this had been going on for a while. And again, the school, never did send anything out to families until it showed up on the news. And I'm going to plead the fifth on how the news got a hold
Mhm.
of the story. But it wasn't until the news got a hold of the story that the school finally reached out to parents and saying, "Hey, this is what's going on." Because at that time, you know, parents who had medication there for other things, maybe it's pain, I mean, who knows? Nobody knew what was going on. When you hear that there's like rumors or grumblings that that kids are getting drugged, and it's so much easier. And this is one of those lessons that obviously schools seem to learn sometimes a little too late, but you do so much better if you are just transparent from the get than try to cover it up and run in circles. And you it just once you lose that trust, it's done, and it takes so much more to earn it back. um and then the stories keep unraveling and unraveling, and then it's a lot more to backtrack and clean up. But they did finally send something out 2 weeks, 2 weeks after I got the initial phone call. And it was still very brief. They did say that that aide was on leave, but that was that was a really, really scary time for everybody, but for me, in particular, because my kids are on those medications that this woman was stealing, and all it takes is one prescription change, and it could have been my kids. I mean, and these kids were going through, I mean, and their families were going through hell. So it's supposed that this was going on for 3 years. So within those 3 years, you got to think these kids, obviously, if they're not being given their medication, then they're clearly not performing or behaving in the way that the medication is supposed to help them with, right?
Right.
So I've had parents that were saying, like, I was upping the dose, or, we were going back and forth with the doctor saying this med isn't working. Or, they were realizing that, on the weekends, their kids were behaving, or that or exhibiting different things because they were actually getting it on the weekends and not, or they were withdrawing from the medication that they were taking all week that wasn't theirs. I mean, and this went on for god knows how long. I mean, these kids, it's a miracle they all turned out okay, and that withdrawal symptoms is really the only thing that any of these kids went through. One child was a nonverbal autistic child that couldn't even say, "This pill isn't mine," or "I don't feel right." Um, and
Mm.
it It was really traumatic for the parents because they didn't know, they weren't hearing anything from the school. They were obviously reaching out to the board, to the super. They wanted to know what happens in that room. None of us knew that it was the health aide giving out the medication. We thought it was the nurse the whole time. We thought maybe the health aide was taking temperatures, calling parents. We didn't know that she was the one that was, actually giving out the meds. Um, and the parents of the kids who were actually affected by this weren't, I mean, it was radio silence from the school, and they're asking, pretty standard questions. Obviously, they're asking for they're doing a FOIA request for this woman, right? They're asking what exactly the protocol is from the moment that that student enters the door, and they weren't getting anything. So it was a whole year later when this woman was finally sentenced, and all she got was tampering with medical files and theft of medication. They didn't get her for whatever reason, or assault, or or anything for drugging these kids. Um,
Mm.
Despite the reports that there were teachers that did tell, the principal and the admin staff, like, "Hey, something's going on here." I don't know why they couldn't get her with it, but they didn't. So she got 2 years, for that. And,
Oh, good.
yeah, yeah, but, I mean, she needs to be put away for life, and,
Right.
anybody that harms a kid, doesn't deserve to be walking in our society. But, that's all she got was 2 years. And, even then, as a district, we never received anything from the school as to, 1, acknowledging what happened, and 2, what exactly what safeguards or what policy or procedure changes were put in place to make sure that that does not happen again. We got nothing. So the parents, of the kids that obviously were affected were still outraged. Parents in the community were like, "Okay, but now what?" You know, and they were, obviously they were still talking to me, but they were afraid because of the lack of communication from the school, because of the lack of support, and honestly, just genuine care. I mean, even an email back saying, "I'm so sorry this happened to you," would have been better than nothing, but these parents got nothing. And they were afraid that if they pushed it, because our kids are still going to this school, they were afraid that if they pushed it, that that the kids would pay the price, as far as, being treated differently, or, being discriminated against. And I wish that wasn't a thing. And it sounds so silly to say it out loud, but it really does happen. And there's a valid reason why parents were afraid. Um, and, at that point, my family and I, we were already kind of talking about homeschooling, but for different, for different reasons. But this was just that was the icing on the cake, right? So I said, "You know what? I'll do it." So I wrote the board and attached the super, an email doing a FOIA request for this woman. And I also said that, "Hey, we as a community are demanding a town hall. We're demanding a meeting where we can come and ask questions about this situation." And I ended up taking that email, I copied and pasted it, and I put it on Facebook on our little, I mean, what, it's not little, it's a huge page for Brecksville. And I put it on there, and I tagged all of the board members and the super in it. So the whole community knew that somebody was demanding answers from the school. And it was after that they finally said, "Okay, we're," they agreed to do a town hall. Um, and even for the town hall, I had parents still ask me to s ask certain questions on their behalf, because they were, 1, either too afraid to go because they didn't wanna lose their shit, but it also wasn't widely known whose kids were affected and which parents were involved. The only reason why I knew is because I already knew them from our little, like I said, neurodivergent community.
Mhm.
So it wasn't widely known who was what. So everybody was, I won't say everybody, but a lot of the parents were afraid that they were either going to go there and lose their ever loving minds, or they felt like they were going to be outed as the people who dared to question the wonderful, incredible school district that is Brecksville Broadview Heights. Um, so I did have a few parents ask me to go on their behalf and ask some questions on their behalf. Um, and But there also were a few parents that, despite them asking me to to do that for them. They found their own voice and they showed up and they asked their own questions. And that was awesome for me to be able to sit there and witness. But I will say, because of that, there were accusations where people were saying, well, Hillary is inserting herself into a situation that she wasn't involved in. And then one thing led to another, where it was Hillary is lying about having a child that was affected by this. And obviously, like, none of that was true. It was merely, I wasn't afraid to stand up for these parents and ask the hard questions, and demand accountability, is all it was. Um, and then during that time, I was starting a different podcast with a buddy of mine, and the news covered the story very briefly, but not the whole story. So I did have parents help me write a script of exactly what happened, and I'm not going to say who those people were, but what I put out there on that initial podcast was the works of, I want to say, 5 or 6 other moms and myself. They wanted their story put out. Um, and then that led to, oh, Hillary's trying to turn this into a documentary. Hillary's trying to make a buck off of other people's misery, and that wasn't the case at all. And what ended up happening, I did pull my kids out, and as far as I know, the majority of parents, they did leave. Their kids did stay in the district, and there is accountability was still something that the school really didn't accept a whole lot. They really chalked it up to, it was one bad actor with a addiction problem, and there's nothing anybody could have done, and it was really lame. And I called BS, and so did everybody else. But not every parent, not every family is able to homeschool or can afford private school. Luckily for me, I work remote, so it was something that I was able to do. But so that was a situation there. But what ended up happening was, I did have one mom in particular. She felt so terrible about the heat that I was getting from certain people in the community. And oddly enough, the people in the community that were giving me the heat were the PTA members, the people who actually, you know what I mean? It wasn't the normies. It wasn't like my neighbors or anything. It was the people who were affiliated with the district, and obviously didn't want the stain. Um, which I get, but it is what it is. But she felt so terrible, and she had asked me. She said, "Can I please just clear your name? Can I, like, I want to do that." And I said, "Well," and I asked her not to, and I said, "The reason why is because you need to focus on your child, because your child, obviously, like, now that all of this is going on, that your kid's been through withdrawals, and you have to basically start his treatment all over again." I said, "That's what I want you to worry about. I don't want you to worry about defending me, because I'm fine. Like, I can take it. We're leaving the district anyway. I'm cool." um and you know but in doing that, she would also have to out herself as being a parent that was affected by this, and everything that would come with that as well. Then she would get hell for talking to me, and I didn't want her to have to go through that after she already went through absolute hell, and the hell wasn't going to be over for her. For me, it was over for me, because I said my piece. I left my kids I took my kids out of the district, and it was done. Her hell was just starting, honestly. So when I realized that it didn't really bother me what people said, and I got peace and gratification knowing that I helped that family, that's when I was like, "Okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, I can do this." And all I did was Google, parental advocacy groups, and Moms for Liberty popped up, and I saw that there wasn't a chapter in Cuyahoga County. And I also saw the things that people were saying about Moms for Liberty, and I said, "Well, they're already saying it, so might as well just, make it official." And that's when I opened the Cuyahoga County chapter.
So what year was this at the Brecksville schools?
That was 2020. It happened in 22. The sentencing was 23. I wanna say it was 23, or it might have been 23, 24. Yes, it was 23, 24 is when it happened. So, yeah,
M
yeah,
Both my kids graduated from, Brecksville Broadview Heights schools. You know, it's a great city. The cops
yeah.
are great. There's so many great things about Brecksville, the safety, but, I was never a big fan of the school system.
Well, and I love living here.
Mhm,
I have no intentions of going anywhere. It really is a great town. Our mayor, Daryl, is fantastic. And like I said, our like you said, our police are wonderful. As far
mhm,
as the schools go, I think it's really no different than any other public school. They want to be the best. They want to be proud of the work that they're doing. Um, and sometimes that hubris gets in the way of what really matters. And what really matters at the end of the day is, the safety of all students. I
mhm.
mean, grades are nothing if your kids are being drugged. Sorry.
Yeah, right.
Um, well, and also, being a partner with parents. And I experienced that myself with both of my kids, where, there's an air about being in education where and it's not the same with everybody, but I would say there is a stigma, or there's, I don't even know the right word for it, but when you're an educator, you obviously, like, you went to college, you have a master's, you have an influence over people. That is something that, most educators are really, really proud of, and they should be. So they have this air about them, right? Same with doctors, lawyers, it's just um and but where education gets a little crazy, especially as of late, is that we're seeing a lot of times where the educators or the administration is trying to fill in the role of the parent because they think that they can do it better. And we're no longer partners as far as parents. Like, parents are no longer partners in education with the school, despite, I think, even in Brecksville's handbook, it says that, they want to be partners with parents in education, but they can say that all they want. It's words on a paper. But
Right.
how do you implement that? And that's what's really lacking, I think, just in public education in general.
I got into I wouldn't say a heated, discussion, but I got into it with the former superintendent. One of my kids, got an F on, I don't know, a test or something, and, so, my son came and he says, "Yeah, I get to retake the test on Monday." And I'm like, "What the hell do you mean you get to retake the test on Monday?" He's like, "I don't know. I failed it, so I get to retake it. So I'm just going to study and, I'm going to pass." And I'm like, "Well, this is bullshit. You earned
Yeah.
that. You earned that F. If
Mhm.
I failed something, I earned it." What? I'm like, this. So I felt like the school was just, creating them to be good test takers and to make them look good. And so I went in there to talk to her. And then while I was in there, I said, "You don't talk about September 11th. You don't talk about December 7th. You don't talk about important days in history because what? Because it was war or something. You don't want
Right.
to be controversial." And ever since then, I swear to God, my son, when he was trying, everything was political after that. He, didn't make the golf team, and my kid is an athlete. He got cut from the baseball team, and it's like,
So you know what I'm saying when I say that these parents are afraid. They're
mhm,
afraid that their child is going to, have reap the consequences of
yep,
parents speaking out. And I hear that, and I've heard stories like yours, um, from I can't even tell you how many parents. And that's the thing. Like, the reason why there's people like me out there doing what I do is because we can't because we're no longer partnering with the teachers and with the schools anymore. They don't want us there. They want us to keep, to stay out of their business and let them do their thing. But look what's happening. Like, your son, like, you know, that's a life lesson, that as far as school's concerned, yes, obviously, like, they need to be focusing on reading, writing, and arithmetic, but also they have to prepare them for the real world, and, having consequences to actions as part of that, and
Right.
they try to rob him of it, and we're seeing that, all over the place with all this affirming stuff, that they're robbing them of the real world consequences, and when parents get involved, the kids are the ones that suffer, um, and, it's, it's too bad, and I wish that there was a way to really, like, put a pin in it or really identify exactly, like, why that is, but the only thing, and it's gonna sound super, super radical, but the only thing that I can really, really say confidently is there because there is so much money involved now when it comes to the teachers' unions, and now that the unions are actually, like, lobbyists, they're not even, like, a real union anymore, they're lobbyists, and it's no secret that the teachers unions are incredibly, incredibly, incredibly radically left leaning, that
Yep.
if anybody, whether it's an administrator or a teacher, were to do anything that warrants, or you know I mean anything other than honestly, like, the outside of the agenda of the radical left, they're worried for their jobs. So I mean, that's the real underlining issue of why we're seeing a lot of what we're seeing, is because the unions are lobbyists now, and pushing a certain agenda, and teachers, students, and parents, they're afraid to go up against this billionaire evil machine.
Do you think parents are part of the problem if they don't show up to these type things?
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it is it's a culture problem. So when I was in school, I won't tell you how old I am, but when I was in school, we didn't have these my parents didn't have to worry about me going into the library and picking out a book that had pornography in it when I was in kindergarten. It wasn't a thing. They didn't have to worry about, my teachers, you know, allowing kids to use litter boxes or wearing tails or boys going into girls' bathrooms or vice versa. Those weren't issues when I was growing up. So now that, my generation, now that we're parents, we're all kind of like in this shock mode where, oh crap, our schools can't babysit our kids anymore because our schools weren't like they were when we were growing up. So that's another reason why I have to do what I do, because I'm telling you right now, my parents absolutely used school as babysitters, hands down. I mean, I was in the before care, the after care, the sports. My parents, they didn't teach me about checkbooks and things like that. It was, hopefully school did a good enough job. And to be quite honest with you, my first year of college, I greatest schools in the country, and I completely blew it because I didn't know the first thing about responsibility or the real world, you know. Um and I think that was obviously a combined effort, but I'll tell you right now, um, it wasn't because my parents took on anything additional or they supplemented what the school was doing. No way, no way. And we're not, I mean, that's just not the case anymore. It's really not the case anymore. I mean, the schools aren't even teaching, like you said, they're not even. So it's not like what it was when we were in school. So parents now, like, you, your kids are not going to have the same experience that you did. And there is an agenda out there that didn't exist when we were in school. The agenda is very, very radical, and they're not even trying to hide it, honestly. You just have to know that it's there, and it's a quick Google, or at least, like, when people are like me are telling you, "Hey, this is what's going on." I'm not doing this for fun. I'm not making a dime off of any of, this stuff. If anything, it's cost me money because I've been fired from 2 jobs for being outspoken for what I do. Um, when I'm telling you this is what's going on, it's because it's what's going on. And parents, you have to, if you want to be the person that raises your kids, then you have to raise your kids.
Well, if nothing changes, what do you think schools are gonna look like in 10 years from now?
Well, so I mean, if nothing changes, I we won't be able to have public education, because the way things are going right now is that we're really straying away from the core foundation of reading, writing, math, things like that. And the curriculums are constantly evolving because of contracts with the unions and the school boards, because it's all a money making machine, right? So the teachers themselves, really the decent teachers who are actually there for a reason, they're not even getting a chance to really do their job. So we're going to see a decrease in quality teachers, and an increase in this agenda pushing. And I it's an indoctrination camp, and I wish it wasn't the case. But even when you have one or two teachers that don't that go against the grain, it still doesn't fix the institution of public education as a whole. Where we're going to keep seeing a decline in test scores. We're going to keep seeing you know different ways to reinvent the wheel, because we shouldn't have never fixed what wasn't broke to begin with. Things were working just fine, but we're going to be relying a lot more on AI. Is That's a big thing too. Um, and the reason why we're going to be relying a lot more on AI is because we're going to be losing our quality teachers. And we're going to be hiring, to be quite frank with you, we're going to be hiring all the blue haired freaks that change their pronouns, which, depending on which way the wind blows. And they're not there for the right reasons. I mean, I wish I could show you, but my inbox is full. I think I probably have 20 voicemails right now sitting in my phone. Actually, yes, right now I'm looking at there's 20 voicemails um, that are on my phone right now from parents, teachers that are telling me what's going on in their schools, bill collectors, but but um, I get pictures of what these educators and what certain admin staff, like, what they're doing in their classrooms, and even social media posts, and it's sick. It's sick. The one that I was sent the other day was a somebody screen recorded a story that one of their old high school friends posted. Like, he teaches first grade, and it was a reel about him saying, like, "I came out to my first graders today." Like, he was bragging about him telling his first graders that he likes to get butt sexed in the back of a van with his uncle Rick. Like, what the hell? Like, why are we talking about that kind of stuff to your first graders? You're their teacher. But that's the kind of stuff that I get. Um, and as long as we allow it, we're just going to let more freaks and more freaks and more freaks come in. And Ohio, especially, already has a really, really big pedophile problem in Ohio education. I mean, it's a problem. I'm sure you've seen on in the news and on social media. It's like every other day, sometimes even every day, sometimes even twice a day, there's a news story coming out where there are teachers being inappropriate with kids. And a lot of the reason why we're seeing that in Ohio, I mean, I always say, if you're a pedophile, come and be a teacher in Ohio. And the reason why we're seeing that so often is because, one, of collective bargaining, but the way that the laws are in Ohio right now, and because the unions are as vicious as they are, it actually costs the school districts less money to just pay these teachers to go away than to attempt to fire these teachers, and then the union come back after the school and sue the school. Because if the school does not follow the process of mandated reporting from the get by the book, then they don't have a leg to stand on, and then then that teacher just goes on and does it somewhere else. So, not only are they protected by the union, but our laws, they don't have any, there's no teeth. There's no repercussions for the schools that don't mandate report. And, when you're, I mean, it's hard enough being a parent, but being a teacher or being an administrator and you hear a story, or somebody tells you like, hey, your coworker or your really good friend is doing this, that, or the other, and you know that it's wrong, but you are afraid because if it's like Fight Club, if you were to say something, you're afraid for your job, but not only that, you're afraid of what the district's going to look like, the hell that the district's going to catch. Um, if you say something, well, that and it comes to, if it's not true, then you lost that relationship with the person that you were. I mean, it's a really difficult situation for anybody in any profession to be in, to have to report something like that. But because they have unfettered access to our kids, it I don't care how hard it is. It's not like it's a one-off thing, or it's not like it's a bunch of adults. It's children. So, if you get fired, then you get fired. I got fired twice and I'm okay. You figure it out, you move on. The kids are worth it. Um, and we've got to do better with making sure that, I mean, I'm working on legislation right now for it, that these schools, that if they don't mandate report, that something has to be done when they drop the ball. Um, and when it comes to unions, especially in Ohio, the average pedophile that ends up losing their license will go through 14 districts before they actually like lose their license or get sent or get jail time.
Hmm. Wow.
14 districts on average.
Wow. Last semester, at the University of Akron, my son goes to Akron. He had one of those, I don't even know what class it was, but he had one of those teachers. And this person was one of those purple hair, blue hair, whatever. And him and his friend were in this class, and she said, what are your pronouns? And my son's like, I don't know, mister." She's like, no, 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 you guys need pronouns. Well, basically the whole friggin' class was like this. And I told him, I said, you need to drop that class because you're going to end up failing.
Right.
And he's like, Dad, I'm going to stick it out. And she used to see them after class and say they're not taking it serious and they're a distraction. And obviously him and his friend, who they both graduated from Brecksville, they don't lean the way that the teacher would like them to lean. And
What
she would,
class was it? Do you remember what the subject was?
oh my gosh, I'll send it to you. I'll have to ask my son. I'll send it to you. But I was like, you got to be shitting me. And he's like,
Mm.
Dad, it's really bad. And the whole semester he had to deal with this. And I'm like, you should have dropped it. You should have dropped this. It's going to screw your GPA. And surprisingly, I can't remember the assignment, and I'll send it to you, what it was, but it was one of those woke social justice bullshit
For math
topic.
class.
Yeah,
That's what we're
and well,
seeing. It's
and
crazy.
he passed the class. He aced the class, and I thought for sure she'd fail him out of spite. But it was just so crazy that he had to deal with this.
Well, and I
And
hear that too in a lot of, in higher education. There's a lot of, students that have said to me like, Hillary, like I had to write this as if I believed this just
yeah,
so I would pass the class. And
I wouldn't do that. There's no way I would
well,
do that.
no, no, but that's another way. I mean, but they're still taking advantage of young people. Like even though they're
Mhm.
adults, like these are still 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, that are just trying to make their parents proud by getting through college, and not flunking out by by, especially with how expensive it is. So I mean, I couldn't do it either, but I also have, I have conservative parents, like yourself, that would have told me like, hell no, like let's go, I'll march down to the school right now. I had that support, but not every kid does. And it happens, and they know it's very predatory, very, very predatory.
There was some parade that was going through downtown Brecksville. I don't know, it was like one of those gay pride things or BLM things or whatever it was. But my son rode his bike up. It was right over by the lumberyard. He was standing there and he had his Trump hat on. And I was like, "Oh, dude, I can't believe you did that." But everybody was saying stuff about him. Well, the Brecksville cops came up to my son and said, "Hey, why don't you come on the other side of the street and stand here with us?" So he actually did, but he showed me video of like these freaks just saying the most horrible things to my son, and thankfully, he has never changed who he is and what he believes in. I'm
Well,
so
they show
proud of
you
that.
who you well, they show you who they are if you just let them.
Yep.
Let them, and it never fails. I mean, that's why we hear stories all the I mean, you see on the news and you hear stories all the time, like about political violence. It's always one side. It
Hmm.
is. Or if you have to be politically correct, then okay, fine, 90-10, but it is more on the one side. And, you don't see conservatives bringing in things to indoctrinate the kids with the schools. You don't see, it's always the one side. And, I, I
Watch
had
him freak out if we say we want religion to be taught back in school.
Well, and
They would.
they freaked out when we said that we wanted our kids to be able to, you know, take a religious class outside of school during their study hall time. They
Hmm.
freaked out about that,
Yep.
but yet kids are able to walk out of class and protest.
Yeah.
Please.
Well, I'm not gonna say how old I am, but when I was a kid, I mean, we didn't have the internet and all the stuff that they have now, and I actually never talked to my father at all about politics, and when I turned 18, I was in the military. Well, I was in the military, at 19, but when I voted for the first time, I just assumed my father was a Democrat, and I voted Democrat. I voted Democrat all the way up until after Obama's first term. I voted for his first term.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I started seeing, all the crap and how he was favoring the criminals instead of the cops and
The
all the
whole
stuff that was
restorative
going wrong.
justice crap, yeah.
Yeah, all that stuff. I started seeing it, and then I said, "Whoa," and I started listening to Mike Trevisano, who eventually I became friends with, and and I was like, all these people that I thought were blowhards, Rush Limbaugh, um, all those guys, Glenn Beck, but that was way earlier when I switched over, and I was like, man, I can't believe I ever voted Democrat in my life. And then I was talking to my father. I said, yeah, I'm finally voting Republican. He's like, why the hell would you vote Democrat? And I'm like, weren't you a Democrat? He's like, no,
Oh,
but
god.
But he's like, yeah, he was actually shocked, but the crazy thing is back then, if your guy lost, you just say, "All right, we'll try again in 4 years."
Right,
If your guy loses now, I mean, first of all, Republicans are racist. Every 4 years, the whole race card is played, and it's
right.
ridiculous, and
Racist, bigoted homophobes.
oh my god, we were called the worst names ever since 2015,
Mhm,
16,
mhm.
and I don't even wanna play nice with people anymore, it's just horrible, but
Well, you can't, and this is why, because they are the radical left, they are no longer capable of reason. They don't want to reason with you. They don't want to compromise. They want to destroy us. That is the
mhm,
agenda. They want us dead. Okay, they killed Charlie. They want us dead. They're killing ICE officers. They want chaos. This is exactly what they want. They don't want peace. They don't want to work with us.
nope.
They don't even want us here. So as far as playing nice, um, are you going to see a bunch of conservatives going out and shooting up, gay pride fest? I haven't seen that. I haven't heard that on the news. We let them do their thing. We leave them alone. But when it comes to issues like this, with public education, and kids, like that is a hill that and I'm not going to play nice with anybody that thinks that it's okay to take advantage of young children, whether it's, with their minds, or, inappropriate conduct. Like, no, 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 no. Like that. For me, you are the scum of the earth and you don't deserve the benefit of the doubt, not for one moment. And I will
Mhm,
come at you with all 5 foot 5 foot force that I have. Um, and I mean, and we're seeing, especially, in over the country. I mean, Moms for Liberty, we we get attacked by being called, homophobes, all of that stuff. Book banners, and it's crazy because we've never banned a book. Nobody wants because if you're a book banner, like if you're truly a book banner, then you don't believe in the First Amendment, okay?
Right.
But not wanting our elementary kids or our young children, not wanting them to have access to porn, if that makes me a book banner, call me whatever you want. That's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for making sure that our kids, um, that they're not going to be subject to inappropriate content with obviously without parental knowledge or consent. That's it. Um, we get so because of that, and this ties into what I was saying before, because of that, we get called homophobic. Well, the reason why we get called homophobic is because the majority of the inappropriate content in the books in the elementary schools or in their, in the curriculums is LGBTQ because they're trying to be inclusive, right? But what people don't seem to understand is what makes somebody gay is who they want to have sex with, okay? That is literally all it is. It's not your whole identity. It doesn't mean that's not who you are as a person. It's who you like to screw, okay? So why is it such a crazy concept that when we are including LGBTQ concepts into books and LGBTQ materials to our kids that it's talking about sex? No shit. It is talking about sex because that's what it is. So it's not the fact that it's, the butt sex. We're not mad about the butt sex. We're mad about the butt sex in our 6-year-olds. Like that's what pisses us off. And if you want to call me a homophobe, if you want to call me a book banner, that's fine, but it's not going to change the reality of it. What that all it is it's the left trying to rewrite the narrative, and they're the ones that are constantly having to rewrite the story. They're the ones that are constantly playing defense because we are having to continuously fight and fight and fight and fight and fight they are because they are trying to put politics into schools and they are trying to indoctrinate our kids. If that wasn't happening, we wouldn't be here. There wouldn't be a need for Moms for Liberty. There wouldn't be a need for me to have to, speak on parents' behalf when like in Parma last year, a little girl got suspended for reporting that her teacher was behaving inappropriately with her. They didn't do an investigation. They did nothing. They just straight up suspended her. And they didn't report it. It was so bad. And this poor mother, I mean, for one, their English is very poor. Okay. They're not a family that could have afforded the top attorneys. And I'm telling you guys, these schools, they know that. They know the demographics. These pedophiles, they're smart. They know exactly who to target. And I'm with 1000% certainty, this school, it was Greenbrier Elementary in Parma. The administration, all the way up to the board and the person and the teacher that was involved in this, knew that that little girl and her family didn't have a chance in hell to actually fight back.
Hmm.
And that's why I got involved. Um, and like I said, there wouldn't have been a need for it if it wasn't happening. Yet here we are.
Did they
And
contact you or did you contact them?
oh, they contacted me. And that's one thing that I've always said from the get. I'm not going to go looking for problems. I have my own children. I have my own job. I'm married. I have a lot of hobbies. I sing in a band. Um, I I don't have the time to go look for stuff. And I've never needed to. I've never needed to. It's like I'm telling you, as soon as I started the Facebook page and, said Moms for Liberty is now in Cuyahoga County, it has been endless every single day, Joe. And so that's why, before we hit record, you asked me why I'm everywhere. And that's why I'm everywhere all the time because there are so many instances of parents all across the state where they are dealing with things like this, where they feel like the schools are working against them, where they feel like their kids are at risk, or they feel, or they have a teacher that's being inappropriate with their child, and um, they've reported it, but nothing's happened. And this isn't so much the case in Brecksville, but it absolutely is in other cities, where if it has anything to do with the school, even the cops are afraid. Like, even the cops are like, no, like, we're not touching it. So then we have to get the county sheriff involved. And then other times we've had to call the FBI. Like, when it comes to public education, these unions, these lobbyists, like, they have unlimited amounts of money that they can fight with everything that they have, and it's just not something that is feasible for even a city to to fight with. So they would rather just, hope that it goes away and nobody's too terribly harmed at the end of the day. So when when I'm on podcasts, or when I'm speaking at school board meetings, or talking with parents, I'm not again, I'm not doing any of it for fun. It's not something that I'm making any money off of. This is 1000% volunteer. Um, like I said, I've lost money doing this. I don't care about the being recognized, or it doesn't do anything for me. I mean, obviously I'm sitting on here with you in a ball cap and a t-shirt, like, I'm not interested in any of that. But it's such a problem in our state that I can't I don't have the opportunity to let up. There are no days off because it's such a problem here.
Well, I think that's awesome that your advocacy for parents and kids, I mean, that's why I wanted to share your story because I really respect it as as a dad, because I made a conscious effort when my kids were little, when their mom and I split up, I could have taken the easy route and been a weekend dad or whatever, but I made a point to be, involved in
Yeah,
every aspect of their lives, their education, their sports. I coached their sports team. I coached at St. Basil's there in Brecksville, and I showed up to as many of those things as I could. And when I felt like my kids were getting the raw deal at school, you can bet your ass I showed up and talked to principals. My son was, stuck up for a friend that was getting bullied, and he was afraid of getting suspended. I went there and talked to the principal. So, yeah, I'm a big advocate for
you
all the
have
same things
to.
you are. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to, especially nowadays. Like, obviously it's a good thing for your kids to know that, they have somebody that's on their team. And sometimes, and I'm glad that you brought this up earlier, sometimes being on their team isn't them getting their way. You going in and saying something to Joel about, your son needing, with the test, that's you being on his team because you cared enough to let him fail.
I didn't even say her name, and
Oh, I know.
you knew who
Oh,
I was talking about.
hell yeah.
Joelle Aguiar or whatever her name was.
Magyar. Yeah. Oh, I know
Yeah.
who all those. Listen, I know exactly who that bitch is. And I
Yeah.
know.
So,
So,
um oh, go ahead.
well, I was just saying, but like nowadays, it's the stakes are so much higher. I wish it sounds so ridiculous saying this, but it really is kind of like life or death. When if you have kids that are, taking medication, you can't assume that what's happening in that room. You actually have to, as a parent, go in there and say, okay, from the moment my child enters this nurse's office, what exactly happens? You can't assume that they're doing it right. And oh, another thing, and this is one thing that I learned that really shook me. And hopefully this will help us kind of transition to what's going on with the school boards.
Mhm.
Um, because when you would think, like, when you go to the hospital, when you are needing to take a medication, or whether it's orally or like through your IV, it's not the person like transporting you from one place to another that does it, right? It's always, always, always the nurse. He or she comes in, they scan your thing, they scan the medication to make sure that it's the right person, the right med, and they are the ones that give it to you. And then It's not like they just hand you the cup and walk away. They watch you take it. Like there's a whole protocol for that. Well, we as parents need to demand the actual policies that because you're not going to find it online, but you need to find the policies for your school, the school board policies, like absolutely everything, and have a copy of it. And if they don't give it to you, it's because they don't have it. Okay. But I learned that in the state of Ohio, in order for um, in order for a school employee to be able to give medication to a child, the board just decides.
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter who it is. If the board says the janitor can give medication to your child, then the janitor can give medication to your child. And it's up to the board. And they're normal people. And sometimes, like we're seeing in Parma, they're freaking idiots. So, but those are the people that are making these honestly like life or death decisions. Like those kids could have died. I mean, I was on Lexapro for literally a day and it snowed me so bad that I ended up passing out and falling off my mom's porch and hitting my head. Like it was a whole thing. And it was the same med.
Hmm.
And I was a grown adult at that time. So it's honestly, it's a miracle that these kids were okay. Um, but like it matters. It matters. It matters. It matters who you vote for and who you have on these boards because they have the power to make decisions like this. They approve curriculum. There's a director that comes in that like, will suggest curriculum, but it's your board that approves it. And we're seeing, if you follow my show Royally Schooled, we're seeing that there's curriculum in there that has very, very sexually explicit material in the K through 5 curriculum. So it matters. You can't have, weirdos like Tammy Sebastian on your school board. You can't
Mhm.
because obviously like if they're not normal in other aspects of their life, you can't expect them to be normal when they're making decisions like this. So as a parent, yeah, it is your responsibility to get involved from, knowing the policies for absolutely everything that school does, knowing the school board policy because you need to know what that school board is allowed and not allowed to do. And you need to really, really know who you're voting for.
So bottom line is parents really need to get more involved and not just blow it off, the elections and school board meetings. Because honestly, the school board meeting that I went to in Parma that we'll about in a minute here, that was the first one I ever went to in my life, and putting two kids through school. I'd never once gone to a school board meeting, but it really opened my eyes to.
That was a boring one too.
Oh,
I
I
mean,
know.
like in comparatively speaking, like that one was boring.
Hmm. And, it was a little comical at the same time, but, it was actually kind of funny. Again, we'll talk about that in a second, but I
Yeah.
was trying to sneak out of there a little early and you were like, "Sit down, it's not over." So, me and, Jake we sat down. I don't know if you remember saying that,
Mhm. Mhm.
but
Yeah, I knew it was coming.
so in 2023, I was invited to Mar-a-Lago for the biggest fundraiser of the year for Moms for America.
Yeah.
What is the difference between Moms for America and Moms for Liberty?
Just our focus, our mission focus. Like Moms for America, they are a lot more widespread. They even kind of branched off and did their own thing when it comes to like school boards. Um, and Moms for Liberty, like we help people run for school board too, but they were more on like the policy side of it, and their reach is a lot broader. They touch on medical freedom and vaccinations and like honestly, literally everything. Moms for Liberty, our focus is very narrowed to parental rights in education. So you're not going to see us, really having like the vaccine discussions. You're not going to see us talking about family court issues so much, like Moms for America might do. We definitely, and the reason why we do that is because for us, it's more about making sure. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with Moms for America. They're a wonderful organization.
Hmm.
But, for us, it's making sure that whatever we do, we win. and we're not overextending ourselves. We want to be experts in certain things. We want to be able to tell parents, like, okay, this is exactly what you have to do in order to, to get what you need to get. And that's why we do win. We win in, like, honestly, in court cases all around the country. But our biggest one was last summer. There was a Supreme Court case that one of our chapter chairs was a unnamed plaintiff in, and that was the Mahmoud v. Taylor case, where they ruled that parents should have the right to opt out of inappropriate material um, in K through, I think it's K through 5. Or it might even be all the way through high school. I don't know. I'll have to double check. But the reason being is because they were including LGBTQ materials in the curriculum, not just like library books, but like actually in the curriculum. And parents, one, weren't notified, and two, when the parents were fighting back, it's like saying like, "Hey, we're not okay with this." The school was like, "Too bad, so sad," and it was against, under the grounds of like religious freedoms.
Mhm.
Because obviously there are some religions. Well, obviously Mahmoud is a Muslim name, so he was the one plaintiff. He was the main plaintiff. Was a Muslim family that said like, we're not okay with this. It's a violation of our religious freedom to force our children in a public school to have this in their curriculum. And now schools all around the country have to offer parents an opt out when they include the stuff in their curriculum. And that was our win.
Hmm, nice. Well, NPR, I was looking at, Moms
Oh,
for Liberty up.
Jesus.
NPR called you guys, extremists. What's your reaction to that?
Extremeless? Yeah, we extremely love our children, and we will extremely do whatever it takes to make sure that our kids are protected from the idiots that run NPR. That's my reaction to that. Freaking morons. My God. I mean, it's so crazy. We don't co-parent with anybody. We don't co-parent with the government. I No. And the only thing, like, honestly, like, the majority of parents feel the same way that we do. We're just the ones that throughout, maybe life circumstances, we're just not afraid to talk about it. We're not afraid to defend it. We're not afraid to speak up. I mean, I can't even tell you how many parents have come to me and they've needed my help because they own businesses and they didn't want their businesses to get doxxed. They didn't, I mean, and that's their livelihood. Um, or, a lot of them I get so many things from teachers, actual teachers from districts all over the state, needing my help with bringing something to light because they're afraid of losing their jobs or not having the union back them anymore. And it's crazy because we really are the majority, but we're bullied into silence because of the what we've allowed. Honestly, like, we have allowed it as a nation when we get complacent and we don't step up to get involved with the school board elections, with the midterm elections. I mean, I'm telling you right now, I am terrified that we're not going to show up the way that we need to show up this November, because it's obviously a non-presidential election. But these elections, they matter just as much, if not more, because these are the people, like the president, like, he's the head. But when it comes to your Senate, your Congress, your city council, your school board, that's the neck that turns the head. The head can't do anything. We have checks and balances for a reason, to make sure that we don't have any kings. But the leftist idiots, they forget about that. That's why midterms matter. And we allow it. We get the government we deserve when we sit on our asses.
Yep. Up until, Trump was president the first time, I was one of those people. I never voted in the midterms. I thought, I'm a president voter only. And
Yeah.
then I really opened my eyes. I started paying attention to everything. And then I was like, you got to vote in the midterms. You've got to
Mhm.
make sure that these wackos don't get in there. And every chance I get, I'm out there, if there's an election or whatever, I'm voting. I don't care who it is. So,
Well, and you're not alone in that.
yeah. But
I
I
mean, I
also
was the
was
same way.
I was also the same guy that's, "Oh, my voice or my vote doesn't matter." And I remember I was in the Navy and my commanding officer, because he gave me a direct order. "You have to go vote." And I said, "My vote doesn't matter." And he said, "You know what? You're right. Your vote doesn't matter. But if 1,000,000 people like you said that, now suddenly that's 1,000,000 people like you, not just one vote." And I was
Well,
like,
but I will argue against that, Joe, only because when you have midterm votes or when you have midterm elections and you pull, especially like for, even for like a primary, it's a low voter turnout to begin with. But I will tell you, my really pain. She is actually my co-host on the podcast that I do about, education. She ran for city council and she lost her city council seat by one vote.
Mm.
And the person that she lost her one vote to was the husband of the Mentor School Board president. And she is as radical left can get. So if one more or if two more people would have come out and voted, it would have avoided, I mean, that the council of one of the biggest cities, one of the biggest districts in the state.
Yeah, I think I was standing next to there was some guy running. I think he was for the president or something in Menor, but I was standing next to a guy and he was a nutcase. I was standing out there trying to with the little signs outside of a polling station, and I believe that if it's the same guy that you're talking about, he was a nut. Everything was saying was just nutty. His daughter lives in New York or something, and I'm like, she was excited to vote for Mendami and all that. And I'm like, that communist? And I'm like, I had to stand there for probably 4 hours next to this guy, and it drove me nuts.
Oh, that sucks.
Ugh.
Yeah. But a lot of people were like, yeah, I mean, I was the same way, where you don't think that the midterms matter. Well, and a lot of it just it comes down to the stakes were never this high before.
Right.
They just weren't. They weren't ever this high. We didn't have the media coverage like we did. We weren't voting on, you know, the Save Act because we didn't have millions and millions of illegals coming in and rigging our elections. Like they just weren't. We weren't having these issues, so those elections weren't that big of a deal. But now they are. We have to really get people to understand that it does matter all the way down to school board. It absolutely matters. And you have to go out and vote because if you don't, you get the Tammy Sebastians. And that woman is freaking nuts.
Mm-hmm. Hey, speaking of the Save Act, you must be really mad because you're married and I assume you changed your name and you're
Hmm.
probably not going to be able to vote, right?
What's so crazy is that honestly, though, like in order for me to renew my license, because my name is different on my birth certificate, I have to bring all that shit in anyways just to be able to drive my car. Okay.
Mhm.
Also, I had to get a passport so I could go on a cruise. I had to bring all that shit in anyway so I could get to go on a cruise. But nobody's calling cruises racist.
How about that
Nobody's
real ID? We all had to get in line and do that, right? And nobody complained that that was racist.
Nope. And that actually costs you money. Like when you go in and get a real ID and stuff like that, that was not free. In the
Yep.
state of Ohio, if you want to have an ID just to be able to go and vote, like they don't charge you for that. I don't know if it's the same way, around everywhere else, but at least in Ohio, it's free. Um, but yeah, it's so stupid. But all I know is that you have all of these cruises that nobody's saying that they're discriminating when they require all of this documentation in order to get on a boat to leave the country.
Right.
Ironic, huh?
Yep.
They want to know who you are when you leave, but when you're already here, who gives a shit? So crazy. It makes no sense.
Yep. So what do you think all these this trans athletes in sports thing?
I think it's a mental illness that we're affirming. Can you imagine what our world would be like if we affirmed all the schizophrenics?
When I was a kid, we used to have a place, it was called Parmadale, and it was basically like a I don't know, almost like a mental asylum in Parma.
Yeah.
And that's where
We
we
need to bring
sent
those
people.
back. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we and it sucks, and it sucks that there isn't a way to magically cure every sort of mental illness that there is, but that's the reality of it. It's the no doubt. I mean, we have hospice centers because we can't cure freaking cancer, so it's the same shit. It sucks, right? But that's life. Um, we need to bring back mental asylums. I mean, Tammy Sebastian's the reason why we absolutely need to bring back asylums, but the transgenders are a close second. So honestly, like, that's the only mental illness, and it's in the DSM, like, it is a mental illness, gender dysphoria, and the other one about, like, if you're a man and you're, like, really, really attracted to a female's body, like, you have to, like, look like it. Either way, it's weird, but, that's the only mental illness that we're affirming. If we affirmed all of the schizophrenics that their delusions of everybody's out to get me, and we were like, "Yeah, they are," what do you think they would do? Exactly what
Right.
the trannies are doing. The trannies are going off and shooting everybody. That's what happens when you affirm mental illness. People get
They're also
hurt.
the ones shooting up the schools too.
That's what I'm saying. The trannies are the ones that are going around, shooting everything and everybody in the schools. That's why you don't affirm mental illness,
Yeah.
you
Would you see
know?
what they're doing in California? They're giving free boob jobs to illegals.
Of course
I
they
sent
are.
I sent a screenshot of the news, with Gavin Newsom, and they were talking about that. I sent it to a friend of mine. He lives in Hollywood or LA, and he's like, "That's why we're getting the fuck out of here."
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I
people
mean,
are
it's
leaving
nuts.
California. Yeah, I mean, so many people are leaving California because of that, because it's never free, okay? It's your taxpayer dollars going towards that. It's not
Yep.
free, you know? But, like, I just even somebody with something as minor as depression, if we affirmed depression, "I really feel like I should kill myself today." Okay, go ahead. Like, it's the same shit. It's affirming
Right.
mental illness. We don't do that. We don't do it because it's not ethical. And it's why we're treating this anything different than that is for one reason and one reason only, and it's the money, honey. When you affirm this mental illness, it's going to be it's the surgeries, it's the politics behind it. I mean, we literally have a tranny person in Congress right now. We have um a Somali fraud lady in Congress right now. We're letting these people in. We're indoctrinating them and including them in the biggest decisions of our country, and then we're wondering we're we're looking around like, how did that happen? No, what do you mean? We all allowed it to happen. We all allowed it
Mhm.
to happen by not fighting back. But it's not too late. It's we can have a republic. Benjamin Franklin said it. It is a republic for as long as you can keep it, and it's not too late. We can still
Right.
decide as a people, as a body, that we're going to keep it this way. And you have to be willing. You have to be willing to go balls to the walls and fight for it.
Exactly. So I've seen you, have gotten involved in CPAC. How'd you get involved in that?
So CPAC, I was well, for one, I always wanted to go, but I was on a mission, and if you haven't been able to pick up on this yet, I really, really despise the teachers unions. I think they are predatory. I think they are evil. They hate America. They hate our police. They hate our kids, and they are taking advantage of our children to become, wealthy monsters. Um, if you told me that Randy Weingarten and the people of the teachers unions were like eating babies, I would absolutely believe you. I really just think that they're the scum of the earth. So at CPAC, I knew that there was going to be a big opportunity to network and talk to a lot of people, because like even like the speakers and the influencers and the celebrities and stuff, like they're accessible at CPAC. It's not like they run and hide. Like you can actually like go and speak to them. And I I wanted to be able to go there and do something to help bring awareness to what the teachers unions are doing to our kids. Now we do have Corey DeAngelis. Corey DeAngelis, he's great. He's a good buddy of mine. I call him, I give everybody nicknames. If well, we can talk about that later, but I call him the Prince of School Choice,
Mhm.
because he's a big proponent of school choice, and the teachers unions are a big reason behind that. He was going. Ryan Walters he used to be the superintendent of Oklahoma State schools, um, and or the school board. the state school board. And then he started his own teachers union called the Teachers Freedom Alliance for conservative teachers who actually, want a union. They're not a lobbyist group. They're actually like a legitimate union for normal people. And I knew he was going to be there. And obviously, we were starting my podcast with Annie, Royally Schooled, where we're talking about things that are happening like here in Ohio that the unions have a lot to do with. And, if there was any way that I could obviously help that mission, help bring more attention and focus to it, even if it meant talking to, random people, going around CPAC, then that's what I was going to do. And so that's why I went, and I was able to accomplish that and some more, which was this just has God's hand all over it. So I haven't made the post yet. Honestly, it's a lot of footage that I have to edit, and it's going to take me. You'll probably see it in a year, but I brought a book with me, and this book was one that was actually, speaking of Parma, was at a Parma library that a grandmother went to the library with her granddaughter because she was expecting a new sibling. And they were looking for a book to help teach that the little granddaughter what was going to be, what to expect. When mommy's going to look different. She's going to be expecting a baby. A baby's going to be here and crying and all that stuff. I mean, that's what libraries are for. They're resources, so she went to the library and was looking for that. And the librarian took her right to the section called Brothers and Sisters in the children's area of the library. And she pulled out this book, and I have it with me, and it's called, I might have to turn my background off, but, it was called, Was I in, oh no, now you can see it. There you go. Was
Yep.
I in Mama's Stomach Too? And, you can see it's a cartoon book, and it looks perfectly harmless. Plus it was in the kids section. So she's going to sit down with her granddaughter and reading through it. And, and it's perfectly fine. It does exactly what she needed it to do, except for one page. Now I brought this book with me to CPAC because it was the perfect example of how things are hiding in plain sight. Okay. There was no reason, by looking at the cover of this book or even flipping through the pages, where they always say, well, you should read things before your kids look at. Well, yeah, of course. But even flipping through the pages, it doesn't, it was harmless. And in the front cover, it says it's for ages 3 to 6. So I don't know if you were able to get the photo that I sent you. I
I
texted it
saw
to
it.
you.
Yep.
So if I can, I want to be able to show it up on the screen because I did white it out. So you won't have to worry about, here, I'll just look, it's my bedroom. So you won't have to, I have to hide from my kids, but you won't have to worry about, editing it or making sure that you'll get flagged. But these were the images that were in this book. Okay. So the reason this page was in there is because not only do we have to teach our kids, when you're expecting a brother or sister, mommy's belly gets big and then there's a baby, which is really like all they need to know, right? They have to know how the babies are made. But before that, let's teach you how to give a guy a boner. And I wish I was kidding when I said that. It literally says, when both consent, adults like to touch each other in the places where they are different, explained Dad. The man likes to caress the woman's breasts and vagina. The woman strokes the man's penis. The penis becomes big and very stiff. So we're talking about foreplay, how to give a hand job, what a boner is, and then obviously it gets into the mechanics of that. But I brought that book with me to CPAC because I knew that I was going to be meeting some people that might be able to, put that on a bigger platform so parents know, like, hey, this is out there. It really is out there, and it is in the kids section. A grandmother did grab it, like it really did happen. And I was able to do that. I was able to talk with Dean Cain, Superman. Oh my gosh, he's still like so stupid hot. But we were able to get some eyes on that, and we've talked about maybe going on his podcast too. I met the producers of the station His Glory. They're a really big Christian network that I did an interview with them, and we talked about the book. Because that's, yeah, there you go. Like, that's the biggest thing, is that parents just need to know that it's out there. And this is not even like LGBTQ stuff. Like, this was literally a book that was about brothers and sisters, and it was still stuck in there.
So
It's disgusting.
did they find the book, or did the librarian take them to the book?
The librarian took them to the section.
Okay.
So grandma still pulled the book out. And what's so crazy is that, when grandma called me, she was just beside herself. Of course, like, what a lot of people don't see is, well, they don't assume, but before I go scorched earth on anything, I always give them the opportunity to do the right thing. And I've done it with Parma, the school board, and I did the same thing with the library. I called the library and I asked them why they had this book in the children's section. They told me when I called them that they didn't have it. They lied to me and told me that they didn't have it.
Hmm.
So then I decided to go to that library myself, and I went exactly to where grandma said that she pulled it off of, and it was there. And I was able to check it out. So, like, they straight up were trying to save face because they know it's sick. But instead of taking, I mean, and she even told me that she complained to the librarians after she found it. But instead of pulling it off the shelf and doing, maybe like an investigation or a review, or like a review of the material, they put it right back on the shelf because they're perverts. They're all disgusting. The ALA, the American Library Association, is just as bad as the teachers unions. They're all perverts.
Wow.
But yeah, and they put it right back on there. And when I was speaking to the woman from the library, when I called, she was actually the woman that is in charge of inventory and what they choose. She explained to me the process, and these books are supposedly read by 3 different adults before they decide to put it on the shelves. So 3 different adults, either one of two things happened. Either 3 adults read that and thought it was perfectly okay to teach your 3 to 6 year old how to give a hand job, or they never actually read it and put it on there anyway because they don't care. Um, so that's why, I brought that to CPAC, and, we were able to, well, and what's so cool about CPAC too is that there's people from all over the world at CPAC. And I was able to show it to some people who were from different countries, and just the look on their faces, they were mortified, absolutely mortified. They couldn't believe that, the country of God and family would have something like this here. They were just beside themselves. But also, I was able to interview Ryan Walters, the guy the CEO of the Teacher Freedom Alliance. I was able to interview him for my podcast, and that interview went so well that he was like, "I want you to cover my summit." So
Hmm.
they had their own big summit once a year, and I got invited to cover it, which is really, like, when it comes to the unions, like, that's why I was there. Like, I wanted to bring more awareness to what the teachers unions are doing, but also to let these teachers know that there's other options out there. Like, you don't have to go with the local union. They're going to bully you, but you don't have to. Like, there is other options, and I was given the opportunity to do that. So CPAC, it absolutely, for why I went down there, it was a success.
That sounds awesome. So one of the things that we've brushed on a couple of times, the Parma School Board. I got a chance to see you in action a couple of weeks ago. So your advocacy is not just for kids and the schools, but it seems to also be for veterans. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the Parma School Board and our mutual acquaintance Ashley McTaggart.
Yes. So Parma, they've had issues at Parma for a long time because they have a culture problem at Parma is what it is. It's a culture issue that they've had for years, and nobody seems to want to fix it, really, until Ashley McTaggart came along. So I know Ashley. I met her through my advocacy work when it comes to the kids. That's how her and I we ended up becoming really good friends. But just as a disclaimer, as far as this specific situation goes, it is out of the realm of Moms for Liberty. So that's why, like, I'm showing up as me. You're not going to see me, you know, speaking on her behalf or doing anything about this, like with my Moms for Liberty gear on. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to
Mhm.
make a statement as far as the chapter, but I will go and I'll say all the things. So, but her and I became really good friends. But also, throughout the years, since she started on the board, parents also got to really see, like, hey, this person actually cares about us wants to work with us as parents. She cares about the kids. There isn't a political agenda. She's not wanting to get anything out of it. And when when the school board does stuff that breaks the law or that seems shady, she asks questions. Like, she fights back. She's not a rubber stamper. She's not a yes man. And she's gained a lot of support from that. And the rest of the board members, even before this board, they hated her for it. I mean, Steve Vaughn hated Ashley. Mark Ruda hated Ashley. Brittany Kerpick, nobody even knew who she was because she just nodded along with everybody. But they couldn't stand her, because she fought back, and she was about the parents. She wasn't about pleasing the superintendent. It wasn't about that for her. So when this new board came about, we had Dr. Leah Early, Tammy Sebastian, Brittany Kerpick, Nick Reyes, and Ashley McTaggart. Now, Ashley and Nick are the only two normal people on that board. You have Dr. Leah Early, and as far as the doctor goes, she's a quack. She's not even a real doctor. She's just nuttier than a fruitcake. And she's very, very sensitive. When for whatever reason, they thought that she was fit to be president at first, and that was just a joke because she was falling under the spell of Scott Hunt. Scott Hunt is the superintendent, and she was naive enough to take his advice and follow his lead. And she followed him right into the snake pit, and she got called out for it because people were hoping better, were expecting better from her because of her. I mean, honestly, because of her husband. So her husband is Rob Early. He's on the city council, and they also own Parma Armory. So here we're thinking like, hey, we got some 2A people here. Like, we have somebody who actually, has experience in education because of her degrees or whatever. Like, we finally have like normal people here, right? No, that's not what we got with her at all. And people were disappointed, including myself. So they fought back. They let her know that they were disappointed, and she went and cried about it, and she even cried to the news about it. Like, what a freak. But anyway, she resigned from being president, and Tammy Sebastian took over. Now, Tammy Sebastian, that woman. So I learned something today about Tammy Sebastian. I got an anonymous phone call about Tammy Sebastian. She was a stripper
Hmm.
at a topless bar along Brook Park. I thought that was fun, and I'm really glad that I haven't shared that with anybody yet, except you, Joe. So you're welcome. Tammy Sebastian, the president of Parma City Schools school board, was a titty tasseling stripper off of Brook Park Road. But anyway, so she has had a vendetta against Ashley McTaggart specifically for years because Ashley is a very outspoken conservative. She doesn't hide what she believes. Again, she's not a rubber stamper. And Tammy Sebastian is one of those crazy, radical leftist idiots. The fact that her hair is still blonde and not blue is a miracle within itself. But so, of course, when Tammy got the opportunity to become president, she used that ability to get rid of Ashley the moment she could. And Ashley is in the Air Force. She did have to go on active duty, for the obvious conflict that's going on, and may be missing some time, understandably, right? Because she's making sure that all of us don't get bombed by nukes. But they are using that, or she's using this situation as a reason to remove Ashley from the board, due to her absence because she's serving our country, which I think is just absolutely despicable. But it's a personal vendetta. It absolutely is a personal vendetta because here's the thing: Ashley and Nick, they are the only two conservatives. Tammy's got her three minions. Even if Ashley was present to vote, they would still get their way because she's in the minority. So
Right.
it's not like their hands would be tied. They would still be able to do whatever the hell they want. But Tammy is using this to remove her from the board entirely because Ashley has made it a hobby of hers to make Tammy look stupid. And it's really not that hard to do, honestly. It's not that, I mean, if you watch any of the board meetings, it's really not that hard to do. Tammy has become so unpopular even before this whole Ashley situation just because the woman's a freaking idiot. And she talks like she's from Compton. I mean, for real. Like I've never seen somebody who is supposed to behave like representing a school body behave in a more just ghetto manner at all. And it just very unprofessional.
Like I
Um,
said, it was my first school board meeting that I'd ever been to, and my takeaway, I thought I was in an it was a bunch of HOA Karens, I mean, it was
like
so
Real Housewives.
embarrassing. Yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
was so embarrassing, but I met Ashley, every year well, for the last 2 years, I do a community day of remembrance for, the 13 that were killed in Afghanistan, and I invite active duty military to come, um, and Ashley came this last year in full uniform and stood there just to show her respects. And I didn't invite her because I didn't know her.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Who is this girl? It's so awesome that she came." And so when I heard that she got activated and what was going on, I happened to be down. I was at the state house and I was getting a bill signed. I created a holiday. August 26th is officially Abbey Gate Remembrance Day in Ohio. Um, I
Awesome.
did that.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
that was awesome. But I was at the state house and we were in the governor's office waiting for the governor. And I was standing there with state rep Jane Timken,
Oh,
and she's a rock star. I love Jane. I love
yeah.
Christina Rogner is another one. I will
Yep.
never talk bad about her. So vote for Rogner for treasurer. Go
Yep.
Rogue. Um,
Christina's my girl.
but anyway, so I'm standing there with Jane, and I'm standing there with a state rep, Haraz Gambari, and I said, "Did you guys hear what's going on in Parma?" And Haraz was like, "No, what's going on?" And I said, "The thing with Ashley McTaggart, the school board trying to kick her off." And he's like, Frank LaRose is deployed right now, right? I'm like, "Is anybody trying to kick him off?" And he's like, I'm a commander in the Navy right now." And I'm like, "Is anybody trying to kick you off? Isn't this illegal?" And he's like, "We're working on it." And I was the more I heard about it, the madder I got. So when my commander from the American Legion was like, "Hey, Joe, come on up to the school board," I thought we were just going to be walking around outside with those signs. And then when Jake was like, "No, we're actually going inside," I was like, "Yeah, this is great." And I knew that Ashley would appreciate that. It was actually the first protest or whatever that I've ever been to, and I was all over the news. I couldn't believe my phone was blowing up. "Hey, I see you
Hmm.
on TV." But it
Yeah.
was it was a total worthwhile thing, and I know, she appreciates it.
Yeah.
But I have been getting roasted online from some woman. Her name is like Angela something or
Oh,
other.
and yeah. That's Tammy's butt buddy. Like
Yeah,
Tammy and her
so
do this.
she's been roasting me on there. How do you deal? I'm sure you get it a lot.
Well, I do. But one thing is I don't like to throw stones in a glass at glass houses or whatever the thing is. So I won't do it now, but I'm hoping that when this gets aired, what I will say is, Angela, there's a lot of people in Parma that know a lot about you and what your husband likes to do on the side. If I were you, honey, I would give this up. And that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, she comes at me with a lot of venom, and I'm like, you know, I'm just sticking up for a veteran here, and you know, well, first of all, I don't appreciate it because I'm not the type of person to pull any punches. If I want to say something, I'll say whatever I'm thinking. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, she definitely
Ask
feels
her if she
very
knows.
comfortable.
Well, then, yeah, next time she does that, just ask her if she knows where her husband is, and then you'll
Mm,
never hear from her again.
is that
Like, truly. Oh, yeah, you'll never hear from her again. Be like, "Do you know where your husband's at right now?" And
right?
then that'll honestly, that'll stop that. But that's the thing, like, when I learned this lesson actually from a really good friend of mine, and we talked about it again just a few days ago. We had breakfast together. like I said, I get a lot of phone calls from a lot of parents, and there's a lot of situations, and I can't fix everything. I can't do it all. But the ones that I do, honestly, like the issues that I do start with and the issues that I do go balls to the walls on are the ones that I know I can win. And I don't do anything or say anything or post anything unless I have all of the receipts and I know exactly what I'm talking about before I do it. So when Angela and her minion, and honestly, like Angela is just Tammy's mouthpiece. That's all she is. Other than like, and she will be
Agreed.
the only one. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like I knew exactly who you were talking about before you even said it because she
Mhm.
is the only one. Um, but I have to I have to know exactly what I'm talking about. That way, when people like her come back and you don't waver in your argument, you see then the other side. Well, what about this? Well, what about this? Well, what about this? Again, they're consistently trying to change the game, and they're trying to find other things to turn it into something that it isn't. But when you're steadfast, they want well one when you're steadfast, you get more support that way. That's when people start to realize, oh wait, like this, you know she really does know what she's talking about. Or hey, when Hillary shows up to something, um she know something big's going to happen, or she's going to drop a bomb, or she's going to win, or whatever it is. And with that in mind, it makes it a lot easier for me to see these guys as the idiots as they are, because I know that I know what I'm talking about. I know that I'm right. That has a lot to do with it. I know that I'm right. So they can say whatever they want. And I mean, very similar to Ashley, like when she quotes ORC to them, she knows that she's right. That's why she's not afraid to say it. And she's not afraid of them, trying to make her, into something that she's not. Because at the end of the day, she's right. And truth will all, I mean, not to sound like cliche, but truth always prevails. It does every single time. It always comes out. And it's and honestly, and I don't even care. If you are that big of a dumbass to be on the side of a fight that is against the veterans, then I don't give a shit what you think about me. I don't care.
Right.
I'm not going to worry about the opinions of peasants.
So I know it's against the law to fire somebody in the reserves, if they get deployed. I guess there's a loophole for elected officials.
There is because you have to be able to serve a certain amount of days or be present for a certain amount of things. Um, so that's why and that's what's so nuts is we're just now dealing with this because like for COVID, everybody was voting virtually and it wasn't a problem.
Yep.
But it does specifically say like that you can't virtually. You have to be actually present. So the reason why it really isn't that big of a deal, or it hasn't been, is because no school board has had the balls to actually fight this. Like this is not the hill that they want to die on. They just excuse the absence, and then it's never a problem. I mean, because it obviously, like, we're seeing issues all over the country, but like this isn't the first time that this has happened. I mean, Ashley was deployed last year too, but the school board, at least these guys, like they knew better than to take this one on. So I mean, the law does need to be changed. It does need to be changed where either she can, the absences should be excused, or she should have a proxy, or she can vote virtually, or what have you. But I think this says something about the makeup right now of the Parma school board, that they were, you know, dumb enough to pick this fight when Parma has already been on the news for illegally cutting a gifted program for their students. That was in the news. And they have 7 teachers right now on paid administrative leave for alleged inappropriate conduct with students after they just had the one last year. So you already got issues going on, and then you decide to do this. You're and they have a levy. They're trying to pass a levy. Are you guys they're idiots. They're absolutely that's what I'm saying. That's why they need to be, especially Tammy, because she's the ringleader of all this stuff. Like she is the reason why you need mental asylums because obviously, like that woman is not right in the noggin, and she obviously does not give two shits about your kids.
Well, I'm a voter. That's my district. I don't live in Parma. I live in Seven Hills,
There you go.
and
So
I will
you have
not vote
Tony. Oh, I love Tony.
Biasiata.
Yes.
I love Mayor Tony. I'm trying to get him on here to do a State of the City podcast, but being a new dad, he's probably pretty busy right now.
Oh, new grandpa.
New dad?
That's his baby? I thought that was his grandbaby.
Nope.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome. I
well,
thought that was his
cute,
grandbaby.
cute little boy. Yep.
Oh my
He
gosh.
named
That's
his middle
awesome.
name after me, Joseph.
Oh, how
No, he didn't.
sweet.
That's his name,
We'll tell everybody that though.
Anthony Joseph.
Yeah, nobody else needs to
So,
know.
Mary, you didn't have to name him after me.
Oh, that's
Oh,
awesome.
I love Mayor Tony. He's so great. So speaking of legislation, Tom Patton is trying to fix this right. Do you think it's going to help? Or fix
Yeah,
this wrong? Do you think it's going to help?
yeah. I mean, right now they're trying to. I mean, the goal right now is to get it through like emergency legislation to have it passed by June. So obviously, like the time won't elapse, and once it's law, um, but also the House, Dave Thomas and Ty, what is his last name? I can't remember. They did a companion bill in the House too. So basically, how that works is that now there's one in the Senate, there's one in the House, and whichever one can get to committee the fastest is the one that's obviously going to be put into how that works. So I do know that we have a lot of support in Columbus, and it really should be bipartisan. I really don't think it'll be um, too big of a feat to get this passed by June. Um, but yeah, once this is put in place, it'll fix it. But isn't that too bad? I mean, like obviously, like it needs to be fixed. But I say this all the time on my show that we are in a position right now in a country, especially that's really it's really foreign for conservatives because we want small government. We don't want a lot. We don't want a lot of laws and things like that. But we are in such a situation right now where we're having to legislate common sense because the left has gone so radical and because they have gone so crazy. We have to legislate common sense now.
Yeah. Well, I keep thinking about this. Parma and Democrats in general, they always seem to be on the wrong side of history. They could
Yeah.
have said, You know what, guys? According to the law, she could be removed, blah, blah, blah. But because she is serving our country and she doesn't need that distraction, we're going to let her vote with a proxy or absentee or whatever. But we're not going to try to kick her off the board. But they went the complete opposite way, which I think is so stupid. And Ashley, I don't know what her job is in the Air Force. She doesn't need this kind of distraction. She should just be able to do
When
her
she's
job,
yeah,
you know,
and she's a
do her
single mom of 3 kids.
yeah, she left her kids and her community to keep us safe. And this is the thanks she gets from the Parma school board. And, you know, that's why I really hope this thing from Tom Patton goes through quick and every one of those on that school board get kicked off.
Oh, yeah, and that's when I mean, and we're not gonna let up. We're absolutely not gonna let up because if they're willing to do something as stupid and reckless as this, then damn well you cannot trust these people to do
Mm-mm.
anything on not just on the right side of history, but anything to actually benefit your kids because they obviously, especially Tammy, this is obviously a very personal vendetta. She has an agenda. I mean, there's things that this woman has done and has had a hand in that for Ashley and Ashley's family's sake, I won't discuss on here, but this woman has gone to such lengths to try to actually like hurt Ashley and hurt Ashley's family. And
Wow.
it's disgusting. And if I was a parent in Parma, um, I would be well, and they are. They are livid. They are absolutely livid because the focus is no longer about their kids and about bettering their kids. And like I said, they have a levy. So not only are you going to insult your community, at least the veterans of your community, you're not going to, I mean, not only are you going to, insult the parents that are being ignored right now, you're going to then turn around and ask them to give you 1.25% of their income tax, or it's an increase of 1.25% for a levy that has no end date. Are you kidding me? Are you
Right.
absolutely kidding me? Those people don't give a shit about you or your kids.
Yep.
And they've made it very clear. You just have to believe what you see with your own eyes.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Is there gonna be another school board, meeting coming up that we're going to?
On the 23rd. Yep, on the 23rd. So I'm gonna try to make that one. I do have another event that Thursday. So one thing to keep an eye out for is streaming on Facebook and Rumble on Ohio Political News. We're going to be airing for the first time Brian Massey, who is the leader of the Axe the Ohio Tax for the property tax petition. He's going to be making a very special announcement on Thursday, I believe, at 2 o'clock. So I'll be there covering that. And depending, I mean, and I don't even know, like Brian Massey is the only one that knows what this announcement is. He's the only one that knows how many signatures are on there. So I don't know what that's going to entail, but I'm going to be there. Because I work for Ohio Political News and we got the exclusive, so that's great. And hopefully I'll be back in time for the school board meeting. But if not, it is going to be at Normandy on the 23rd. They bumped it up to 5 o'clock. We need people there because we just can't let up, not for a moment.
I'll be there.
Good, good,
Yep.
yeah. And tell all
I
your friends. I think I sent you the flyer too. Tell everybody because we can't. This is not over. This is. I
Mhm.
mean, if you paid attention to social media the past few days, they went to the news. Like her, I won't get it. It's Ashley's business, but she was on the news again about this situation, and they tried very hard to paint it in a light that was inaccurate to the point where the Air Force had to actually step in and give a statement to the news saying, yes, she is on active duty
Hmm.
because they were just going to such lengths to try to discredit her. It's awful. It's awful. It's
It's
awful.
crazy. I
But
know
yeah,
that
so it's
Mac
not over.
I know that Max Miller, um, let the War Department know about what's going on, and, Sean Parnell follows my social media. Sean's he works directly with Pete Hegseth, and I sent him some information about it too, so, I know that it has gotten to at least Sean Parnell, so,
Yeah, well, and I checked with I checked with somebody from Access staff, and they did receive something back from the Department of War. I don't know exactly. I mean, there should be federal protections,
yep.
but right now it is a state issue. So I don't know what the Department of War is able to do, but even some support, like, hey, like Pete, Parma's not that far away from DC. I drive down to DC all the time. It's only 5 hours. Like, we can meet halfway. And I'll drive you to sit at the school board and watch everybody shit their pants. But I mean, even just a show of support would be fantastic. I
Yep.
mean, Ashley deserves it. All of our vets do.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, for being an advocate for them too as a veteran. I appreciate that. So, I see you running for office one day.
You know, that's been brought up a lot.
I'll bet.
Um, and I don't know. So the thing is obviously, like, I would not consider myself the most demure person. So I don't have that super polished air about me that I think you'd need to have as a politician. I mean, obviously, like, Donald Trump doesn't have it, but he also has like that FU kind of money, so he doesn't need it. I don't have that, you know. So but it's definitely something where I'm like, okay, I would love to run if it meant that I could make a difference, because that's what I care about. I want to be somebody that is known for making a difference, somebody that is known for when Hillary speaks, listen, because she's speaking on behalf of, X amount of people. It's not just, a little echo chamber, and it's not just me, bitching behind a keyboard, right? Um, so, running for office would give me that opportunity, but I don't want to be beholden to, and unfortunately right now, especially, we're seeing even smaller races like school board races and running for house, like, or running for, state senate. Those races cost so much more money than they used to. I mean, a school board race easily 50 grand, or 50,000. um running for that, running for the state office, roughly around 2 million. And then if you're running for an actual, like, treasurer, secretary of state, auditor, what have you, it's closer to 10 million. And what we see is when you are, running for office and you get elected and you're in those situations, like, we see these politicians, they're beholden to the people that funded their campaign. And sometimes that's even when it comes down to the party. They're beholden to the party for the work that the party did to endorse them or to spend money on their campaign. And I struggle with that. I mean, I'm definitely a team player. And I will always vote Republican before a Democrat every single time. But I don't ever want to be put in a situation, and we're seeing that right now, especially on the House side. If you pay any attention to what's going on in state politics, our Ohio House is a mess. Um, we're seeing where we have people um, really afraid to go against the Speaker of the House. And then we also have people who will do whatever the Speaker of the House says, despite what their personal convictions are. I don't want to be put in that situation. Well, let me rephrase. It's not that I don't want to be put in that situation. It's that I wouldn't last very long because I would either lose all of the support from the party or from the, from whoever's in charge. So here's what needs to happen. I said, I just need to go in and just be in charge of the whole thing. Just
Hmm.
vote me in right away as the Speaker of the House or as a Senate president, and then all will be fine, right?
So you think you'd be more effective outside of the system or inside?
Well, outside of the system, I have more freedoms. I have less, I don't have really anybody to answer to other than my husband and my, and God. That's where I'm at right now. Obviously, as an elected official, I would have to answer to all of my constituents, even the ones that don't like me. Right now, it's a I I don't have to answer to anybody. I will help those who need my help regardless of where they come from or what party they're on, and the people that don't like me are the ones that don't know me, so what they say doesn't matter. But I don't know. I don't like playing the games. I'm not really much of a, I don't want to schmooze anybody for a vote or for some cash, like, and that's just what the political system is right now. Um, and who knows? Maybe that'll change. Yeah, do you know who the rooster is?
The uh, you mean the movie?
No, so he's
Oh,
out of Columbus.
no, that I don't.
He calls it, I mean, I think he considers himself as an independent, but I don't know, I think he leans more left, but he's a independent journalist out of Columbus, and he's got this, like, online magazine, and he calls himself the Rooster. And he rags on everybody. He holds everybody accountable, every single politician. He'll go right into the state house, and and honestly, in my opinion, I think he's rather respectful about it. The politicians might feel differently, but he'll say exactly what he wants to say, and call them out for what they need to be called out for. And then he just gets to walk away and say, like, look, and gets to say whatever he wants to say, and gets to share his story. And there are certain things that I might not agree with, but hell, I respect him. I really do. I follow him. You know, we don't agree on pretty much anything politically, but I get why he does what he does instead of running for office, because he gets to have that platform. Um, and I think that's more of the direction that I'm going in right at the moment. Um, because that is my fight. My fight is about the schools. When my fight becomes something maybe a little bit bigger, or maybe when there's somebody else to to pass that torch to when it comes to education, then I might consider the next step. But for now, this is where this is where I'll be.
Well, you're pretty effective so far, right where you're at. Your
Thank
social
you.
media your social media says you're a Jesus freak.
Yes.
So what does that mean to you?
That means that I love Jesus. I am a born again Christian. I am a sinner that has been saved by the love and the blood of Jesus. And you know, I'm not perfect, but I don't have to be because of Jesus.
Phil
Um,
3:12 says that.
yep, yep. So, um, and everything I do, absolutely everything I do is with my faith in mind. And a lot of that, a lot of that is common sense, what I would consider common what any normal person would consider common sense. But really it's just because my faith just so happens to be common sense. You won't ever see me advocating for pro choice ever, 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 ever. And whether that is, an issue in education or not, you just, even if the Republican Party decides one day that they're going to be pro choice and they're going to fund all the Planned Parenthoods, well, then I guess what? I'm no longer a Republican, or even when Donald Trump, I voted for that man more than once. And if I had to go back in time, I would do it again. And if he, for whatever reason, ran another term, I would vote for him again. But I will say when he posted that picture, that little meme or whatever, I know why he did it. I know he was trying to piss off the Pope, but I'm not afraid to say that, like, hey, buddy, like that crossed a line with me because I'm a Christian first. I'm a Christian first. Um, and then, I'm a mother and a wife, and somewhere, and it might not seem like this, but like honestly, like somewhere at the bottom of all of the things about Hillary is the fact that I'm a conservative and a parental rights activist. There's so much more, but definitely being a Christian is that's at the top.
I
That's
like
the
that.
top.
Do you have a favorite Bible passage?
So as far as like a favorite, I don't know if I have a favorite, honestly, because right now I'm rereading the Bible with my kids, and I'm listening to it again, because just reading it as a kid and then reading it again as an adult are two very, very different experiences. And now I'm kind of like reading the Bible as almost like it's like a soap opera. Like we don't need movies. We honestly, like, we don't need movies. We don't need TV shows, because like what happened in the Bible is is cool, like, on its own, like the story of David. We went and saw that movie, Young David, not too long ago with the kids, and we're just fascinated by, when you actually like read the story and get into the nitty gritty of the scripture, instead of just like the one little David and Goliath story, and you actually like know the ins and outs of what happened, how he got there, and where he ended up. You don't need TV. You don't need soap operas. Like, you have enough action, enough drama, enough highs and lows, and things that you didn't expect, like, all right there. So I mean, there's one in Proverbs about Proverbs 3, what is it? 3:19, 3:19. I don't know, but I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I want to say, isn't that Proverbs 3:19? My husband just came in. I think it's 3:19. Um, but I could be wrong. But and also one is, in Esther, born for such a time as this. Um, that's where, Moms for Liberty, like that's our big, I don't want to say slogan, because I don't like use a Bible verse as a slogan, but we always are reminded, when things get tough and the enemy attacks, that the reason why we're born for such a time as this. If we weren't effective and if we weren't doing what God told us to do, then we wouldn't be persecuted. Because it says in the Bible that we're not of this world, and we will be persecuted for following His word. So, um, I'm not obviously like I'm not as cool as Esther, but I definitely feel that this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, and that everything that I've been through and the people that I have met has it's led me to do this.
Nice. One of the things that I do, so I make those wooden flags behind me, and,
Yeah,
I on all my flags, I'll put a little Bible passage on the bottom. It'll say like Phil 3:12 or or Mark, or Matthew 5:9 or something like that, and my hope is that it will inspire whoever gets that, to look at it and say, what does Phil 3:12 mean? And then they'll realize, oh, that must be a Bible passage. So then they open their Bible and then they read what Phil 3:12 says, or Matthew 5:9 or something like that, whatever passage I put in there. Uh, and then my hope is, while they have that Bible open, say, "Oh, I remember seeing John 3:16 in sporting events. What does that mean?" And then they flip to John, and then they flip to, something else. Well, my pastor calls that flag evangelism, but that's what I do on my flags. I always put something on the back, but
that's
I love
awesome.
yeah, I love doing that. But so that's what I do. But I'm a big Jesus freak too.
Oh yeah,
Have you ever heard of the, Neo Church in Seven Hills?
Neo Church. No,
N NEO? Yeah.
no. So my friends and I, like, we plant churches. So I go to church all the way down in Canton because
Mm.
that's our most recent well, our first actual our church plant. So I don't I would like to find a church up here too to, to visit, but that's where I'm at on Sundays, is all the way down in Canton. But is that where you attend?
Yeah, so Neo Church, I used to go to Harvest Ridge in North Ridgeville. Well, years ago, I used to be a Catholic, but then I realized I didn't need a religion, I needed a relationship.
Mhm.
Long story about that, I won't get into it now, but, I eventually found a Bible-based church, Harvest Ridge in North Ridgeville, and I love that church. I actually felt like home and felt like the pastor was talking to me every week.
Right.
But when I moved out here, I was going to, what is that? CVCC?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's really close to where I live.
yeah, so I was going there and I liked it, but I never felt like home. And
It's a
then,
big church.
yeah, I'm sorry?
It's a big church.
Yeah. And then I heard about, Neo Church here in Seven Hills, and I like it. It's small, it's nice, it's a good Bible-based church, and I really do like it. The band is amazing. Holy cow.
Oh, awesome.
Great band.
That's what one of my hobbies is that I'm a singer, and I sing on the worship team at my church. And yeah, there's a you can't beat having a really really good worship team to just to help you turn off all of the noise and really, focus in and help make you more present.
Yeah. Yeah, it really, the band really makes a huge difference,
Yeah.
but yeah, you should look it up. I mean, it's actually, I really do like it. So, and it's the first time since Harvest Ridge that I felt like home.
Oh,
So,
good. Well, I'm glad to hear. Well, yeah, whenever I have a Sunday off, I'll definitely check it out.
and they do all their stuff on YouTube also. So you could take a look at it online. The pastor is really nice. Everything about it's really nice.
Oh,
So
good.
you talked about your podcast too. What's your mission behind that? Seems like everybody has a podcast now. So, which is a good
Yeah.
thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a great thing because that's what we can do here in America. And the fact that everybody can have a podcast means that our country is the greatest country in the world. Even if you want to have a podcast that does nothing about bitch about our country,
Mhm.
you can because of the First Amendment.
And there's
Um,
plenty of them, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah. But what we do is it's called Royally Schooled, and we air every Monday at 5. Um, on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, X, and Instagram. But I'm not sure if we air it on Instagram. But anyway, um, so obviously with me, I talk more about the activist, and the advocacy side of public education, because that's what I mean. And we both homeschool. So my co-host, her name is Annie. She used to be on the Mentor School Board. So between her and I, we both homeschool our kids. Obviously, I'm involved with parental rights activism, but she brings in the inside stuff because she's no longer on the board. So when there are certain situations and certain things that the board all across Ohio that boards do that they don't, they're maybe not certainly like forthcoming, or they make certain decisions that don't make sense and they want to know why, or we have, a board minority like Ashley and Nick who just get bullied and they don't know what they're supposed to do. That's where Annie comes in. She gives us the inside scoop and tells us, what she's experienced and what she's seen. And then obviously I come at it from, from the parent side. But really our mission is to, let people know what's going on with, what their tax dollars are being spent on as far as public education. But also, um, we are absolutely advocates for homeschooling. That doesn't mean that we're anti-public school, because we both believe that public schools should be a safe option for all families, um, all American citizens and their families in our country. But at the same time, we have also seen the benefits from our own kids, and the leaps and bounds that they've come, not just academically, but socially, emotionally, uh, being homeschooled, and having their mother as their teacher, which is the way that, in my opinion, that God intended it to be. Um, and it's just more accessible. I mean, homeschooling, there is a stigma out there that's just it, and that's all it is. It's a stigma. It doesn't make it fact. It is a lot more feasible to do nowadays. Even because I still work full time, but even there's co-ops, so there's still drop-offs that aren't public school. I mean, there's so many things that you can do, and there are so many alternatives to public schooling. So that's really what our mission is. It's all education, really, in a nutshell.
Do you sleep?
No,
Because you're everywhere. You have a full-time job, you have 2 kids, you're married. Uh, you can't sleep.
I don't. I don't. But I figured I'll sleep when I'm dead. And the hope is that one day I will be able to rest because my work is done. Um, or that there's somebody even more passionate than me that will take it even further than what I thought I could do. But yeah, I mean, I have my husband, my 2 kids that I homeschool. I work full time. I do the Moms for Liberty stuff for Cuyahoga County, but I also do the legislative stuff for the state. I'm on the board for Middleburg Heights GOP and Strongsville GOP. And then I also play in a band, and I worship. I lead worship at my church. So yeah, I mean, every day it's something. And it is a lot. It is a lot. And there are some days where um, that I would be lying if I said that I wish that somebody else would just do it so I didn't have, so I wouldn't have to. But at the end of the day, I can't ever go back to how life was. Like, there's no way that even if I stopped showing up to school board meetings, my name and my face is already out there. I mean, and I don't want to. Honestly, like, I don't want to stop. I'm going to keep going. Like, it's what my heart beats for. Um, but even if I wanted to, I can't ever unopen that can that I opened, you know?
Hmm.
Um, there's no going back. So that gives me more fuel to keep going.
I'll tell you what, at that school board meeting, I said to Jake, I said, "I bet these guys shit their pants when they saw you show up to that thing."
Yep. Yep,
So
and I don't ever, like, announce, like, when I'm going because I
right.
used to. So I did that once. I did make a big announcement because I wanted to, like, rally people up, and they ended up canceling the meeting. This was a while ago. Ashley was still she was still deployed, last year. So this was before I even met her. But just because they knew this was before they even knew who I was. Just Moms for
Mhm.
Liberty alone was enough for them to wanna cancel it. And then, when I actually started speaking out and talking at like my first speech to them last year, got on libs of TikTok. you know so
Mhm.
I let them have it. And yeah, so now I'm a little bit more sneaky when I decide to show up. Sometimes I show up an hour late just to
Hmm.
keep them guessing.
Wow. So your social media said you're a car chick. What's your favorite
Yeah.
car?
um so my favorite car is like I'm a Mustang girl. My family works for Ford. I'm a warranty administrator for Ford. So I like to being a warranty administrator, I'm the one that tells the grown men how to fix the cars. You know how Ford wants them to do it. So I've been having hard conversations from the from the get for lots of years. Um so yeah, I I'm a Ford girl. I like the Mustangs. My dad has a was it a 67 Canary Yellow Mustang. Um and he'll never let me drive it. He bequeathed it to my son. So even like when, you know, when his time's up, it's still not even going to me. He's never even let me. I'm the only one I think that hasn't even gotten a ride in it. But
Wow.
you know, he's taken everybody else except me. Well, because I like to go fast.
So you prefer manual or automatic? Can you drive a
Automatic.
stick?
I used to be. I learned how to. Okay, so I learned how to drive a stick, or I guess I should say a manual four wheeler, way back in the day. And I hated it. Like, I just never thought it was fun. Some people really think driving a stick is fun. I I don't like to think about more than what I have to. So I'm okay with driving an automatic.
Well, I love the 68 Mustang convertible. I love that car. And I also love the 69 Camaro and the 57 Chevy. So I guess I'm all over the place, but
Yeah.
I've always wanted the 68 Mustang convertible. Ugh.
Yeah, my dad's is a convertible, but I'm pretty sure I think his is a 67. My husband's looking at me like I'm crazy. It's not a 67? The top comes off. It doesn't come off? No. Okay, he's okay, maybe it doesn't come off. He's looking at me like I'm crazy.
Hilary, I appreciate you coming on and having a real conversation. No scripts, no shortcuts, just real perspective. Whether people agree or disagree, at least they know where they understand you're coming from. For everyone listening, if this episode made you think, fired you up, or gave you a different perspective, share it with somebody. Hilary, where can we find you and what you're doing?
I I'm most active on Facebook because I'm the worst millennial ever, so I don't really know how to work the other social medias. But yeah, just Hilary Jackson, Hillary with one L. Um, Look me up on Facebook, X, Instagram, but yeah, Facebook's where I'm mostly active.
Her reels and her posts are not just educational, but they're also funny. Um, if you want a good laugh with some of the stuff or you want to be enlightened, definitely start following her. So, and as always, we'll catch up on the next one. Thank you so much, Hilary. I really appreciate you doing this with me.
You got it, Joe. Thank you.
All right. Have a great evening.
Thank you.